1st, 2026. This is known as April Fool's Day, and of course, people will be playing pranks on each other, most likely all day today. One of the funny situations when I was growing up, my older brother, whose name is Douglas, and he had another friend whose name was Douglas as well. They were neighbors of ours when my brother was, of course, around 11 or 12 years old. Doug Halpin had moved in next door, and Doug Halpin was a bit of a scallywag. He was a bit of a character who loved to do shenanigans. And both my brother and him, they instantly click together. And I remember this one particular April the 1st morning. And what was going on was my brother and his friend Doug, they were doing pranks on people, their friends, and they would set up the garage, which was next door, and it was where Doug got together, and they pranked people. And they had set up, and Doug went and found me. And I was playing in the backyard doing what I was doing. He says, I've got something very special to show you. I said, oh, okay. So he led me towards the garage, and he said, oh, I got to tie my shoe. Go in. And so I walked into the garage and opened the door, and to my surprise, all of a sudden, a bucket flew down or over my head and drenched me with water. Instantaneously, his friend Doug threw some dirt on me, and I was covered from head to toe with a mud solution. And the two of them began to laugh and laugh and laugh. And they said, okay, now go away, and we're going to do another prank on you. It's April Fool's Day, and that day I learned the meaning of April Fool's Day. Anyway, today, of course, is the first of the month, and we're heading into a couple of days from now what I describe as the most wonderful time of the year, that being, of course, Good Friday and Easter. I love it because the simple fact it is um, a um, a wonderful memorial and celebration of the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, his broken body and shed blood. Today, I was reading the story of Joyce Davidson or Joy Davidson. Now, many people have never heard of Joy Davidson, but Joy Davidson was a young woman that had, at the age of 22, had been able to write different poetry and also different books. And she was actually quite a fiercely independent and also as well a critical thinker. And she had been married to a very he wasn't a nice man. She had fallen in love with him when she was a teenager, and what really offended him and put him on edge is that this young lady was fiercely independent, and so he was constantly trying to put her down and subject her with all kinds of types of devices. He was manipulative and critical of all that she did, but she never allowed him to dominate her. And actually, what happened was when she was in her mid 30s, she made a decision that she was going to move to the nation of Great Britain. And what was interesting was she had a favorite author, and that favorite author happened to be C.S. Lewis. And here you have C.S. Lewis. For many, many years, he had a quiet and ordered life. Everything was, perfect for him. He was a bachelor, And all of a sudden, he received a letter from this lady named Joy Davidson. And she basically challenged him on several of his ideas about what he had, supposed about life. Now, being a bachelor, of course, he didn't understand family. He didn't understand certain aspects of how family works within the Christian world. You see, Joy Davidson had been an atheist as a young woman, but she had started reading um, C.S. Lewis's different writings, like the Screwtape Letter, Mere Christianity. She had read the Tales of Narnia to her two boys, and she said there were certain things that C.S. Lewis was writing that, as far as she was concerned, was wrong. So she started sending letters to him, challenging him about his critical thinking. And he was overwhelmed by the fact that this young lady seemed to have a view of things that really challenged him. And so they began this pen pal relationship, him writing back and challenging her ideas and her challenging his ideas. Well, over time, she made the decision that she was going to remove herself from this abusive relationship with this man that was literally challenged and also as well felt uh, attacked by her intellect and by her wit and by her ability to be able to express herself, not only in the area of writing, but also in the area of speaking. So she made a decision. She said, you know what? I am going to move to England and I am going to, find a position. She was offered a position in a particular situation, and she moved her family, that being her two boys. And so she wrote to C.S. Lewis and said, I'm coming to England. And he extended to her an invitation. And so finally they met together. And so in the first exchange, they basically spent, most of the day debating and talking back and forth, she challenging his ideas and him challenging her. He said he found his intellectual and emotional equal. Well, what happened was, this is an interesting part of the story. Um, when her visa expired and the English government said, you have to go back to America. And she said, well, I am, divorcing my husband and I don't feel safe. C.S. Lewis said, you know what? I will marry you. It was a civil marriage. Their relationship had blossomed into a deep friendship, but it had not blossomed into love as yet. So, what started as a civil act of helping a friend out, they got married, but it turned into a story of love. And very shortly after they got married, Joy Davidson, who was now Joy Lewis, she got cancer. And he stood beside her and he prayed with her. And together they prayed that God would heal her. And you know what? God did heal her. And for the next 3 years, they had a tremendous love affair. They walked together and, would spend many nights with C.S. Lewis's friends. Some of those friends are well known. For example, J.R. Tolkien, who happened to be a very close friend of C.S. Lewis. And he was also a dear friend of Joy Davidson, who was now Joy Lewis. And for the next 3 years, they had a marvelous fairy tale relationship. And then all of a sudden, the cancer came back. And Joy passed into eternity with C.S. Lewis by her side. They had a wonderful 3-year relationship. And C.S. Lewis said this: Those 3 years completely and totally changed me. He said up to that time, he said I had this idyllic look about life. He said I had, chosen to have life on my terms. Then this storm came, whose name was joy, came into my life. And he said, she brought true joy into my life. Well, she, of course, passed into eternity, and C.S. Lewis was never the same. In fact, he was both melancholy and yet joyful. He said, the greatest joy in my life, besides my relationship with God, was this woman that I was able to spend. We didn't have a lot of time together, but he says every moment that I spent with her was an absolute dream. He says, God brought this woman into my life, and he says, she made me choose. She made me choose every single day a different lifestyle than I would have ever dreamed possible. He said it was a marvelous, marvelous time. He says, yes, we only had 3 years together, but he said those 3 years impacted my life like no other situation or person. And joy brought joy to C.S. Lewis's life. Now, one of the things that Joy always said to C.S. Lewis, you make a choice. And so today, I want you to make a choice. I want you choose today to smile. Do you know that it takes less muscles to, of course, smile than it does to make a frown? So today, choose to be energy efficient. Choose to smile. Instead of frowning, choose to be joyful. Choose today to love. Yes, love is that wonderful quality that, makes us reach out and heal others. It was Jesus who said in Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 to 40, to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. What Jesus was talking about was, of course, you and I choosing to receive the love that God has for us today and allow that love to flow into us and heal the areas of our lives that are broken. You see, C.S. Lewis said, I was never the same man after the Lord took Joy home because the cancer came back and he was with her right to the very end. He said, but in those 3 years, I learned what love was all about. He says, I had theorized about love. He says, but there standing in front of me was a person who was the personification of God's love. He said, this woman challenged me in every area of my life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, financial, and family. He says, she changed me for the better. And he said, that's when I discovered what true love was all about. He says, there were areas of my life that she was able to help me to be healed from. And so he says, her love and her fierce love for me was what healed me and made me whole. He says, I had theorized about God's love, but he said, this woman was a woman who demonstrated it in my life. She truly loved me, and I truly loved her. You see, love comes in the form of people. That's right. God sends people into your life to help you to learn to love. Not this wishy-washy type of love that often is portrayed in movies, but love that is deep, love that completes you, and love that shows you what it is to really care and have substantiation in your life. And if you have someone that God provides that way, you are truly, truly blessed. You really are. And God uses people, and God not uses his love through people, and you can be an instrument of love as well. So choose to love today. Choose also to help. This is that day where you can choose to help somebody to better somebody's life. It might be just a small little token of help, standing out there and helping somebody do something. Maybe today a friend will call you up and say, "Can you come over and help me do something?" Don't even hesitate. Go over there and be a blessing. Some of the greatest experiences of life is helping someone do something. Maybe today go to a soup kitchen. Maybe become a volunteer in a local organization, or maybe just help your spouse do the dishes. Some of the best conversations that my wife and I have had in recent days has been about just doing things together. Doing gardening together, having little projects together. One of the neatest things that we did last summer, which our grandkids enjoy every day, is we spent 2 days putting together a playground equipment. That's what we did. We had put up a swing set, and we put up, a little house that went along with it. And it took my wife and I about 2 days to do it. She organized all the different pieces and apparatus. And then when I needed help, she was there, and we had a wonderful conversation. And also, as well, our grandkids visited during that time, and they were enjoying it. They kept saying, "Grandpa, when this is going to be put together?" And my wife very graciously and wonderfully said, "Don't worry, it's going to be together very, very soon." And it was, and it was wonderful. And our grandkids absolutely love it. In fact, my granddaughter, whose name is Sarah, they're visiting over the Easter holidays, the spring break, and every single day, Sarah goes over and she plays on the playground. Well, my wife and I spent 2 wonderful days together, and she was helping me. And we had wonderful conversations together. And so being helpful with someone can make all the difference in the world. Also, today, choose to be kind. That's right. Love is patient and love is kind. Maybe the best thing that you can do for someone today is, of course, kindness. C.S. Lewis said that even though Joy Davidson, who would become Joy Lewis, he said, even through all the pain that she went through, he said that this woman literally lived 40 lives in one life. She was only 45 when she passed into eternity. So she was still a young woman, but she had chosen, instead of allowing life to make her bitter, it made her better. She said she had to fight through the pain and the sorrow. And in that pain and sorrow, she learned how to be kind. She made a decision that she was going to be kind no matter what happened to her. And it was that kindness, even though she was fiercely independent, even though she was the intellectual equal of C.S. Lewis. And he said that. He said, she was my intellectual equal. And yet, he said, her kindness was an incredible gift. He said she was kind to every person that came into their household in the time that they were together. He said she made everyone feel as if they were special. Did you know that the definition of a lady or a gentleman is that they try to make everyone around them feel as comfortable as possible? So today, choose kindness, choose to be a lady, choose to be a gentleman. And that is, of course, a great gift. Remember, love is patient and love is kind. Also, as well, choose to be happy or choose to be joyful. Now, I want to tell you the difference between joy and also happiness. Happiness is the feelings and the emotions at the time, your perception of what is going on. Last night, my granddaughter and I, we went for a walk. And one of the things that she likes to do when she comes to visit is go with me for a walk with my dogs. She absolutely loves our dog. In particular, she loves the dog that we have whose name is Bo. I asked her last night, I said, which of the dogs do you like the best? She says, I like Bo because he's so kind and loving. Now, Bo happens to be we have a Labrador excuse me, that we picked up about 7 or 8 years ago. He was a rescue. And when Bo came into our house, he was scared. He was about 45 pounds. You know, he's about 30 inches high, and he was about 45 pounds, and he was terrified. Well, over the years, Bo has developed into this beautiful, loving, kind dog. And he basically is the favored of all our dogs. We have a British Bulldog whose name is Butler, and we have another fine Labrador that we raised from a puppy whose name is Baxter. And these three dogs are absolutely wonderful dogs. They really are. And I take Baxter and I take Butler out for walks every night. I tried to take Bo home out a couple of times, but what he does is he just runs home. So, anyway, we were taking the dogs out for a walk last night, and we looked up and we saw the full moon with all the different clouds that were going by. And I said, isn't that a beautiful sight? And she said, yes, Grandpa, it is a beautiful sight. And she says, it makes me so happy to see the moon and the clouds. Well, what she was experiencing at that time was the emotions of feeling good about something. She was happy. Well, happiness is the feelings and perceptions of, joy at that moment. But joy is something a little different. It is a deep seated contentment, knowing that everything is going to turn out. I like what Isaiah said when he said, therefore with joy shall ye draw waters from the wells of salvation, and in that day shall ye say, praise the Lord. So basically, in the perception of Isaiah, Isaiah said the joy comes from something deep within, something that is greater than just the moment. You know that everything is going to work out. You don't know how it's going to work out. That's faith. But you know it's going to turn out okay. That every situation has a purpose. That everything that you face is actually going to make you a better person. Not a bitter person, but you need to choose. You need to choose joy. You need to choose happiness. You can find, even in the most roughest moments, something that can make you actually smile. And, it's been very interesting, especially when you have children. You could be going through a tough time. I remember there were several months where things were not going very well for us. But you know what kept us laughing? Our children. Our children were doing all kinds of crazy things, and they were making us smile. Just those little things. You can find joy in every situation if you are looking for it. I know that there are times which are not easy, but there's a wonderful scripture where Paul said, all things work together for good. Doesn't mean all things are good, but all things will work together for good. Happiness is that momentary feeling, but joy is that deep-seated contentment, knowing that everything by faith is going to work out. It was the writer of Hebrews said, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So you can choose that. It's a decision. Yes, you can choose to be unhappy. You can choose to blame God. You can choose to blame others. And in your mind, it's perfectly right. But, and I love the story of Joy Davidson, because the simple fact is, even though She had a rough situation. And even though she suffered with cancer and the cancer would return, during that remission time period, C.S. Lewis and her had 3 years together. And C.S. Lewis described those 3 years with Joy Davidson, who became Joy Lewis. He said it was like heaven on earth. He says, I loved her boys. I loved everything about her. He said, she challenged me in every area. He says, I needed to be challenged. He says, because my life had a simple symmetry to it. And she came in like a storm, but it was a good storm. It was the type of storm that absolutely changed me for the better. And sometimes the storms in life, if we allow it to happen and we make the choice, it will make us not bitter, but better. And that's why Joy Davidson was such a powerful impact in C.S. Lewis's life. She completed him. She made him whole. He had a wonderful relationship with God. She had a wonderful relationship with God. She had found her relationship with God through all the things that she went through. She had a cruel and manipulative husband that she had to escape from. And then she chose to come to England because in her mind, that was the place where she could find the peace that she was looking for. And she found some of that peace in the relationship that she had with C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis said that he didn't really know what love was all about. He had theorized about what love was all about. But all of a sudden, God provided him with an individual that personified the love of God because she had learned about the love of God through the things that she had suffered and the things she had learned through the scars of life. Yes, sometimes life is tough. Sometimes life is unkind, but that's life. And one thing that we as parents often try to do is we try to protect our children from the throes of life. But somehow, some way, life blasts through, and there are times where we can't protect our kids. And all we can do is believe that the wonderful relationship that we have with our children are going to keep them through the tough times. And you know what? You will find out that your children are more resilient and more creative than you ever thought possible, and tough if you allow that to happen. You and I must choose, of course, what kind of person we're going to be. We make that choice every single day. So when you get up this morning and throughout this day, choose to be you. Choose today to do what I've asked you to do. Choose to smile. Choose to love. Choose to help. Choose to be kind. Choose to be happy. Choose to be you. The one thing that C.S. Lewis said about this individual named Joy Davidson, who would later become, of course, Joy Lewis. He said, she was the most original woman he had ever met. He said, this was a woman that was a blessing to my life. She may not have been in my life very long, but she made me actually feel like I had heaven on earth. He said, it saddened me to lose her to cancer. But he said, in that time, he said, I learned about what love was all about. Love takes you through both the good times and the bad times. You know, it was Solomon who said this, a 2 or 3-fold cord cannot be broken. I remember the movie Live and Let Die by, of course, James Bond. And in that movie, James Bond said, it's shared bodily warmth that keeps us going. Well, basically, what that means is when you have somebody in your life, someone who is with you through the thick and thin, it is absolutely wonderful. If you have a spouse like that, you are blessed. If you have a friend who sticks closer than a brother, you are blessed. You know, most people will only have someone in their lives, maybe two or three people in their lives. But if you have someone like that, you are blessed. And if you don't have someone like that, you know what? Ask the Lord, and He will bring somebody like that. It, it was C.S. Lewis said he wasn't looking for Joy Davidson, but he had said, Lord, I really need a close companion, a friend. And don't think for a single moment that he didn't have good friends. He had several good friends, including J.R. Tolkien. But these men could not complete him the way that Joy Davidson did. And he said, when this woman came into my life, he said, she completed me. She made me whole. She, touched my life. And I love how it's put this way. You see, when the Lord made woman, he didn't make her out of his head or out of man's head to be above her, and didn't make her out of our feet, though that we would dominate her, but out of our side, so that we would be made complete and we would be made whole. And so that is the story of Joy Davidson, the story of C.S. Lewis. And I read that today, and I just had to share that with you and to remind you that you and I make a choice every day. Choose to be you, but choose today to walk with joy, not Joy Davidson, but with deep seated contentment, knowing that everything's going to work out. Choose to smile, be energy efficient. Remember, it takes more muscles in your mouth to make a frown than it does, of course, a smile. Choose to love. Show love today, because remember, love is patient, love is kind. Choose to be kind. Show compassion and help to someone today. And choose today to walk with joy and happiness in your life. Enjoy every moment, because every moment can be special, especially if you have someone to share it with. My name is Robert Dean Steele. Thank you for joining me today. And of course, if you like what you've been hearing and seeing, of course, press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you, all the people who have subscribed to my YouTube channel. It makes me feel so happy to be able to share these positive stories to encourage you every single day to be a better person, to be a better version of you, whatever that looks like. Also, as well, make sure that you check out my YouTube shorts every single day. I put on special little snapshots, vignettes, little um, videos of encouragement, and check those out. I did those as well today. My name is Robert Dean Steele. You have yourself a great and godly day. If you are right now enjoying Easter holidays, enjoy them as well. And remember, in just a couple of days, it will be Good Friday and Easter, the most wonderful time of the year. Have yourself a great and godly day.